Good morning, colleagues in higher education, our dear presidents, vice presidents, other school officials in Region 1 joining us today. Naimbag abigat, kada kayo amin, masanton kabusan, EDSI kayo namin. 3 weeks ago, we launched our project Transitioning the Education Ecosystem to the New Normal webinar series in celebration of CHED's 26th anniversary. This is our way of helping our stakeholders to continue to thrive amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Surprisingly, our series of webinars intended for Region 1 have been supported not only by our stakeholders in the region, but in the other regions as well. With that, we thank all of you for having supported this project. Our lecture series and preparation for flexible learning as a new normal in higher education, both in our YouTube channel and Facebook page, have already reached 393,400 views. We are asking you to like our Facebook page, CHED Region 1, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, CHED Regional Office 1, for you to receive announcements and important reminders from the Commission. So today, to culminate the region's celebration of CHED's 26th anniversary, we have invited the pillar of the Commission, our leader in higher education, no less than our chairman, Prosepero E. Vera III, to talk on reshaping Philippine higher education challenges and future strides. Again, may I remind our school officials joining us today via Zoom regarding our guidelines in this virtual gathering. Let us now begin our session. As we face this crisis, no matter how distant or disjointed we are at the present, we remember that God is always near us, and in His divine nearness, we are one no matter where we sit. Let us all pray.
Grounds and deepest waters, your sovereign hand be my guide. My feet may fail and fear surrounds me. You've never failed and you won't stop now. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours. Spirit.
Dr. Juan Primitivo Petrola, Education Supervisor 2, will now introduce our guest speaker this morning.
Our keynote speaker holds the distinct position of heading the institution that directly influences and impacts on all undergraduate and postgraduate students of state universities and colleges and private higher education institutions throughout the Philippines. The very individuals who, in years to come, will be employed, become entrepreneurs, and will take on their chosen profession or vocation. Dr. Prosepero Popoy de Vera is a chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education and Commissioner of United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO. He was a professor of public administration at the University of the Philippines and served as its vice president for public affairs from 2011 to 2016. Prior to his appointment to the commission, he hosted the top-rating education program Turo Turo in DZMM Teleradio of ABS-CBN and No Filter on the ABS-CBN News Channel. He served at the Committee on Revenue and Taxation of the California State Legislature and was the first Filipino recipient of a California State Assembly resolution given by Speaker Willie Brown commending his work at the California Legislature in 1992. As a political strategist, He has run many political campaigns at the national and local levels and serves as a president of the Association of Political Consultants in Asia. While being a Green Archer, having finished his Master of Arts in Social Science at De La Salle University, Chair De Vera remains a loyal scholar ng bayan, first obtaining his Bachelor of Arts in History and later his Doctor of Public Administration degree from the University of the Philippines. He was a Fulbright Hays visiting scholar at the University of Southern California and the California State University, Sacramento. He is also a senior Fulbright visiting professor and fellow at the Johns Hopkins University. Chair De Vera spent the past 3 decades in the policy arena, working in the legislative and executive branches of government in the Philippines and United States. His areas of policy expertise cover higher education, agriculture, indigenous communities, environment and climate change, good governance, and local governments. He served as executive assistant, chief of staff, senior consultant, and senior advisor to Senate Presidents Aquilino Pimentel Jr. and Coco Pimentel, Senate Presidents pro tempore Sotero Laurel, Leticia Ramos Chahani, Juan Flavier, and Senators Gregorio Onasan and Ramon Magsaysay Jr. from the 8th to 16th Congress. This familiarity with the politics of legislative work now translates to Chet's higher batting average of legislations passed in recent years, including the monumental free tuition and other school fees in tertiary education, or RA 10931. Not many know that behind the scene, it was Chairman De Vera who quietly shepherded these laws in both the Congress and the Senate. In recent years, Chair De Vera has been scrutinizing the policies, standards, and guidelines of all courses being offered in universities and colleges to ensure that these meet global comparability at the very least. His concern has always been the course offerings must meet standards that will allow our students to be at par, if not better, than their counterparts in the ASEAN region or elsewhere in the world, which means a rethinking of curricular offerings and curricular content and standard set of learning outcomes. A well-respected member of the cabinet, a trailblazer in tertiary education. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome one of the best sons of Region 1, the chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education, Dr. J. Prosepero Popoy E. De Vera III.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Naimbag nga bigat kanyayo amin it Region 1. The introduction was very long, actually too long. Anyway, I'm sorry it was a little late. There was a bit of a technical problem here in the office. They couldn't find my presentation, so I'm sorry for coming in late. But what I'm going to do this morning is to represent what I originally presented in a webinar sponsored by Globe several weeks back. And as the regions were all requesting that it be broadcast to a bigger audience, I decided to do some edits on the presentation, taking into consideration discussions in the IATF after that webinar and some of the new emerging concerns that are coming out in the discussions. So let me do a presentation. Okay na ba ito? Can you see my presentation? Can you all see my presentation now?
Good morning, sir.
Can you see my presentation?
Hindi pa po, sir.
Screen share that.
Sir, wala pa po. While we're preparing, while our chair is preparing his presentation, would like to welcome all those who are tuning today in our Facebook page and our YouTube channel.
Can they see that now?
Okay na pa.
Okay then. Okay, I entitled my presentation Reshaping Higher Education in the Philippines. And what I'm going to do is give the context of how higher education is affected by the global pandemic, some of the steps that the Commission has done to address higher education issues during the pandemic, and the emerging concerns that we all have to address as we move forward when we open classes in August or later. So first, the first hypothesis or the first context that we all have to understand is that COVID-19 is a global concern or a global phenomenon. And there are really no quote-unquote experts on COVID-19 as a pandemic and also its impact on higher education. What we are sure of is that it is associated with many deaths. It is associated with different countries on their own trying their best to address the health situation of their countries, and different countries adopting different approaches to addressing concerns in the pandemic. So the first conclusion or the first lesson that we all have to keep in mind is that this is global, and number two, there are no experts, which means when we look at higher education in the context of COVID-19, you must always look at it from a global perspective and also recognize the fact that all those who are saying this and that and working on many assumptions are just as clueless in many respects with other people. And this is a learning process that we have to work with as we move forward. So that's the context that I want everybody to understand. In fact, when this was first discussed in the Philippines in February 4, I remember that meeting because in the hearing at the House, at the Senate, the whole cabinet was practically there. And what we were talking about there was basically the health dimension of what was then NCOV. It was not yet COVID-19 at that time. There was no discussion or there was no, how would you call that? Nobody had an idea on how far and how grave the impact of COVID would be on the different sectors of the country, including higher education. I remember we were discussing at the time how to put the mask correctly, how to measure the distance of social tracing of passengers inside an airplane, for example. And this was February 4. In a political cartoon issued by the Philippine Star in February 17, in fact, government was being criticized at that time for giving too much emphasis on COVID-19, while concern, according to the political cartoon, should be focused on diseases that are already in the Philippines, like dengue and polio. And this was in February. So nobody, in a sense, anticipated how grave the impact of COVID would be in this country and in higher education in particular. What we did realize once it hit us was that in more ways than one, it was going to show probably the worst of us in terms of hoarding. Toilet paper became a very scarce commodity, and we became students of history because we now look back and try to make sense of all the pandemics that has happened in this world, all the way to the bubonic plague in the 14th century. We also realized as the pandemic hit different parts of the country, that part of the new normal is now a gadget where you know your temperature every hour of the day. And we also realized that what our parents were telling us all along, which is to wash your hands, was after all a desirable trait that we must all do regularly during the day. So this is the context of COVID-19. And so the question is, how has this reshaped higher education in the Philippines? And how have we responded to the reshaping of higher education? In the context of the Commission, from March until May, the Commission issued 6 advisories on a wide range of issues, from suspending classes to adopting flexible learning, to a moratorium on payment of fees, closing the semester, etc. The general approach that the Commission took when the pandemic hit us was to give maximum flexibility to both public and private universities on how they can deal best with the pandemic. This philosophy or this policy adopted by the Commission was anchored on the fact that the pandemic hit different parts of the country differently. And therefore, a one-size-fits-all policy was not only, how would you call that, was not only impractical, but was not going to solve problems at the local level. So the advisories that I issued, many of them I wrote myself while the IATF was meeting and in the meetings with the president. And later on, advisories that were crafted with the help of state universities and colleges and private universities. I'd like to thank in particular the president of MMSU, President Agrupis, for helping craft several of the advisories that CHED issued. The general direction was to recognize differences across regions, across universities, some are big, some are small, across degree programs, and give maximum discretion on the universities on how to adapt during the ECQ. That was the general approach. And so all throughout the ECQ, what the Commission did, aside from issuing advisories, was to convert these advisories into infographics that can easily be disseminated. Because the other aspect of COVID-19 is that information flow shifted towards social media in particular, and also, of course, traditional media. So we converted all these advisories into easy to understand infographics so they can be disseminated wider and further. There were 4 IATF decisions that I submitted to the IATF and which was approved, specific to higher education. The first one was a resolution to allow the continuation of classes in areas under GCQ after the lockdown, to allow students to submit requirements for their grades to be computed and for their credentials to be issued. The second was to allow higher education institutions to have skeletal force in areas under GCQ in order to accept student requirements, issue credentials, and prepare for opening of classes. The third one was the policy on opening of classes. And the last one is the policy on HEIs in MGCQ, which is still being fleshed out now in the IATF. The most important of these policies that was approved by the IATF was the policy on the opening of classes. I asserted in the IATF meeting that there were 4 key considerations in the opening of classes. Actually, initially there were 5 because the first consideration was RA 7977, which stated that classes have to be open between June and August. But I asserted in the IATF that RA 7977 does not cover the commission. And this was later supported by a legal opinion of the Department of Justice, saying that RA 7977 is only for the K-12. So the 4 key considerations that I discussed in the IATF were differences between K-12 and higher education, the difference between online learning and flexible learning. The third one was the preparedness of higher education institutions to school opening. And the fourth is the impact of school opening to both public and private HEIs. Let me take them up quickly one by one. I asserted in the IATF that the policy on K-12 and higher education must be crafted differently because there are fundamental differences between the two. The first difference is in the magnitude of students coming back to school. Almost 30 million students in the K-12 are coming back versus a little less than 3 million in higher education. So the fear of reinfection and the latitude in restructuring the physical arrangements in schools is really different when you go to K-12 versus you go to higher education. The second difference is the enrollment pattern. 84% of students in primary and secondary education are enrolled in public schools, while 54% of students in higher education are enrolled in private universities. And therefore, the approach in the opening of these two educational systems must be different. For higher education, we must seriously consider the situation of private schools in this country. The third difference is the differences in the use of flexible learning options, particularly in higher education institutions, before, during, and after ECQ. And the fourth is the difference in educational practices and financial position of private higher education institutions in higher education. The second concern or the second parameter in looking at the opening of classes is the use of what is called flexible learning. The concern for reinfection is anchored on the belief that HEIs will open with face-to-face or in-person learning. The Commission uses the term flexible learning. I don't use the term online learning because that has assumed a bad meaning during the ECQ. I think there was a misunderstanding when I issued the first advisories telling HEIs to adjust their learning system. Many automatically went into online learning, and many were not prepared. And the problem of connectivity became a major problem during ECQ, and therefore online learning took a negative turn So the correct term is flexible learning. Flexible learning is a more encompassing term that looks into the design and delivery of programs, of courses, and learning interventions based on the students' unique needs in terms of where the students are located, the pace of learning that they take, the products of learning that are available, and the process of learning. Flexible learning uses both digital and non-digital technology. It covers both face-to-face learning and out-of-classroom learning. It is more encompassing than online learning. And flexible learning, as I have said in the media, is designed to make higher education institutions COVID resilient. The third parameter that I presented in the IATF is to assert that higher education institutions are capable of delivering flexible learning options. Many universities and colleges have been doing online learning before ECQ. Many others have started using flexible learning before ECQ, shifted to flexible learning during ECQ, and that the Commission is ready to assist HEIs to do flexible learning after ECQ. It is also asserted in my presentation that HEIs have sufficient time to prepare for the school opening in terms of requirements by health protocols, crisis management and communication plans, and that the health situation can change significantly between now and August 2020 as testing expands, as additional laboratories are certified, and as additional quarantine centers are established. Finally, I discussed with the IATF the financial impact of late school openings. For public HEIs, the financial impact is not grave and very significant because almost all public higher education institutions already opened in August. The last two big HEIs that were still using the June opening are now moving to August. That is Philippine Normal University and Polytechnic University of the Philippines. So most public HEIs have shifted to August upon the instructions of Congress in the 2019 GAA, where a special provision was put there to change the school calendar of HEIs so they can adjust to cash-based budgeting. So the financial impact on late school opening will be negligible since they are publicly funded. And the impact will be on the difficulty in paying part-time faculty because of the no class, no pay policy. But for private HEIs, the financial impact is grave because majority of private HEIs still use the old calendar. And when they move the opening of classes from June to August, the estimated revenue loss and cash flow problems is very significant. The Commission and UNIFAS has been able to release the first tranche of tests for students in private universities. But we have not released all because the DBM has not given the money to chair. And therefore, I contended in the IATF that the position of private HEIs must be seriously considered. Because if their financial situation requires them to reduce their workforce, or worse, if they close, the victims are not just the private universities. The victims are the students who will have no schools to go back to when school opens. So the decision of the IATF on May 13 as recommended by the Commission, was to adopt a rolling opening of classes based on education delivery mode, compliance with health protocols, and situation on the ground. HEIs using full online education can open anytime. Those who are using flexible learning can open in August. And those that will use significant face-to-face or in-person mode, or those that the situation on the ground warrants, can open in September or even later. The IATF also adopted a policy that there will be no residential or face-to-face or in-person classes until August. Encourage private HEIs to change their academic calendar and open in August and strictly comply with all required protocols. The Commission is going to sit down with the DOH, with PASOK, with COCOPEA, and the other stakeholders to craft detailed health protocols that need to be implemented in all schools when they open. And we are targeting that these health protocols will be taken up in the IATF during the month of June, so that universities will be able to implement it starting July. And that the CHED will continue to review conditions on the ground and discuss with HEIs. Okay. Now, what else has the Commission done? We continue to discuss with the SUCs, with LUCs, and private HEIs on what needs to be done. In fact, one of the unintended consequences of COVID-19 is that I am more tired now because I have too many Zoom meetings. But the good thing is, for example, I was able to bring COCOPEA to present its position in the IATF. That is very rarely allowed. The third parties would speak in the IATF because the IATF is basically cabinet members, executive agencies deciding on policy. But recognizing the grave situation of private universities, I was able to prevail upon the IATF to let the COCOPEA speak. We have been discussing consistently with both public and private universities issues on flexible learning, connectivity, preparedness, etc., and the need to train faculty and administrators. We're also launching a training program for business continuity planning, because one of the realizations during the pandemic is that universities are not prepared to be completely closed down. And many of the things that we're supposed to do, even in the Commission, has practically stopped because of the pandemic. For students, we have been able to work with the PRC to cancel all examinations until August and reschedule the once-a-year examinations within the year so that students can still take it. We are discussing with maritime students. We have been able to bring back slowly and repatriate stranded students both abroad and locally. And we have been crafting pandemic-related education laws or policies in Congress. I'd like to inform our private universities who are in attendance that upon the discussions that we've had in my testimonies in the House and the Senate, I raised the issue of part-time teachers not being included in the social amelioration program of government. And it has been included in the Senate bill, principally authored by Senators Recto, Angara, Pia Cayetano, on the stimulus package that will be passed by the Senate and the House. This was already announced publicly in the media. And so we are working closely with the House and the Senate to see how we can help both our part-time teachers as well as our students. This is my final slide. I just like to throw some ideas for discussion. First, we have all been debating whether classes should be opened, whether we will wait for a vaccine before we open classes, whether we should just wait for next year. It is my position that with or without COVID-19, we must open classes. We must open classes. The scenario of perpetually being kept in the dark and waiting for a vaccine is a scenario that is not good for the mental health and the physical health of everyone. We must open classes. But the caveat is we must be good at scenario building and we must be good in adjusting fast depending on the situation on the ground. We must be able to strictly enforce health protocols. We must reconsider, I ask our universities, to review off-campus mobility. Maybe even make a moratorium on sending your students abroad or out of the school. A moratorium of maybe one school year where we do not send them abroad. Because our experience in COVID-19 is when we send our students abroad and a pandemic strikes, we are at the mercy of the policies that other countries take. There have been instances of HRM students sent to Thailand 1 week before lockdown was issued in the Philippines. Their internship was supposed to last until June. But the tourist facility where they were staying suddenly closed. And they just told the students to go home. So those are things that we have to rethink. We must also now make our campuses that have good health facilities, or work with LGUs that have good facilities, so that if there is a re-emergence of infection, we should be able to send our children or our students quickly to health facilities. I also ask our universities to respect the decision of parents if they do not want to send their children to school because they're afraid of infection. Let us adjust our policies, like maximum residence, for example, or graduating with honors, so that students can still go back when they feel comfortable. The same goes to faculty members, particularly those who have morbidities. Second, there is no escaping the fact that flexible learning will now be the benchmark. But I always say that if a vaccine is available and we can do mass vaccination and things change in next year, we can always be flexible in terms of doing more activities in the campus. But until the health situation improves, we must do flexible learning. This will require a serious attempt to resolve the digital divide. More importantly, the biggest challenge in flexible learning is our faculty, because faculty members must now reconsider how they teach. That is why the most aggressive intervention that the Commission will do is to do training of teachers, because they are the key to flexible learning. Universities must now accept that some ways of teaching no longer make sense. For example, We have been so used to determining the competence of our students and the grades that they get based on examinations, midterms, finals, etc. In flexible learning, we must reconsider this because many of our faculty members worry that under flexible learning, they don't know if the student is the one taking the exam. And we assign other things that students will do outside the classroom. We need to transition conceptually from a dependence on exam-based system to more project or task-based system. We have to change the way we look at the evaluation and grading of students. And finally, we must be ready for a crisis of enrollment. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation. I am ready to take questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Marami pong salamat sa napakahalagang impormasyong ibinahagi niyo po sa ating mga higher education institutions sa Region 1. Questions po from our viewers, from Andy Carion Brimon. What will be the learning modalities used by colleges and universities? Thank you.
Well, it depends on the situation on the ground. It depends on the capability of universities. The general policy is you must be flexible. What will not be allowed is the regular face-to-face or in-person classes where you have 40, 50 students in the classroom, because that will violate the health protocols on social distancing, on mass gathering, etc. So you must be able to be flexible. Universities that have significant capability to do online learning can do more online learning. It will be based on the profile of your students, the connectivity available to the campuses, and that is how you adjust your flexible learning system. There is a misconception that flexible learning is not possible if connectivity is weak. That is not correct. Even if there is no connectivity, you can be flexible. How do you become flexible? You adjust your syllabus so that certain parts of the syllabus can be done by the students outside the classroom. You can develop modules. There are textbooks that can be assigned. There are learning exercises that can be assigned. There are papers that can be written. There are examinations that can be made. So what you can do, if there is practically no connectivity, is batches of students. Some students go to class, the others do theirs outside the classroom. And in the next weeks, you shift. Those are doing things outside the classroom will be the one to go to school, and those who were in the classroom are the ones who will do activities outside. Effectively, you can reduce the class size by 50% at the minimum by simply assigning certain parts of the syllabus to be done outside the classroom. Meron namang learning materials eh. There are still textbooks that we will use. Students can still read and learn and do exercises outside the classroom. So it is not true that if there is no connectivity, learning stops. It only stops if we assume that all learning can only be done inside the classroom. But that is not true.
Salamat, sir. CHED Advisory number 7, sir, stated about the use of full online for summer 2020. However, the chair distinguished online learning with flexible learning. In this note, does the full online learning still apply for summer, or can private HCIs intending to offer summer program for affected students use the flexible learning? Ito po ay question, sir, galing sa ating Zoom from our President, Dr. Remedy Asis of Metro Dagupan Colleges.
The decision of the IATF is flexible learning can only start in August. It cannot be used previous to that because that is the projection of the health situation that is happening. So before August, the only allowed mode is online. That is the decision of the IATF because we have to look at the situation on the ground. And the situation of on the ground is still does not allow it. The position of the IATF is until there is a quarantine, it is not safe to send a lot of students to go to school. There are practical reasons for that. Number one, if there is still a quarantine, public transportation is limited. And therefore, the idea of allowing students to go to school, even on a flexible mode, is going to be problematic because public transportation is not available. Number two, essential services in schools, yung support services for the school, are still not available because restricted pa ang operations of businesses during a quarantine. And therefore, the support services for universities are still not going to be there until a quarantine exists. So it would be difficult to allow flexible learning while a quarantine is still in place because the students will have problems, the faculty will have problems. That is the context on why only online is allowed until August. Kasi wala yung services. And the health protocols that are required for flexible learning are not yet in place. Because there will be health protocols, social distancing, temperature check, etc. All of that are still going to be implemented by universities. They have not implemented that. The guidelines for that have not been issued by CHED and the Department of Health. Kaya hindi po pwedeng mag-flexible learning.
Sir. From Jerry Dicadis, likewise, just like famous generals like Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and Napoleon, you stayed in the front of the battle. Great respect for you, sir. Galing po ito kay Jerry Dicadis, sir. Next.
Well, as they always say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. That has always been a motto that I have believed in. No, but in all honesty, I think credit must be given to universities during the pandemic because I think the innovativeness and the flexibility of the universities has been shown during the pandemic. We have not seen on this magnitude a situation where state universities and colleges, for example, and private universities have been helping frontliners, giving them supplies, producing alcohol, alcohol, face masks, PPEs. The universities have risen to the challenge in helping our frontliners, in helping communities, in helping local governments during the pandemic. I hate to think of what could have happened if universities did not do anything to help frontliners during the pandemic because of the scarcity of supplies. At least a lot of the frontliners, a lot of the local governments did not have to rely on the very scarce supplies available in the market because the souks gave them for free this COVID materials, no? And the university the CHED, by the way, has already started giving financial grants to state universities and colleges to continue producing COVID-related materials. So when we open in August, they can give the masks to their students for free, for example. I don't know if the souks in Region 1 have projects that have been approved already, But I signed checks already to, I think, about 15 state universities whose project proposals have been approved by the Commission.
Ating pong Mariano Marcos State University ay nagsubmit po ng kanilang project proposal last week, sir. Our next question is from...
Wala pang na-approve?
Baka i-present po mamaya sa CEB, sir. For Zaya,
Okay.
sir, how about the students who needs OJT? For example, nursing students who must complete their duty hours for them to graduate and take the board exam.
Are these for students who are supposed to graduate second semester of 2019-2020, or those who are going on their fourth year now?
Sir, about to graduate this second semester, sir.
Okay. The decision of the Commission was to give flexibility to the universities to complete these requirements. The advisory that I issued stated that if you have pulled out your students from OJT or internship in March 15, do not send them back. Do not send them back. The reason is very simple. We are not sure of the safety of the places where they will be sent back. We are also not sure if these companies are already open because of the pandemic. So it is not safe to send the students back. So yung bumalik ng March 15, kung ano pa yung kulang niya from March 15, doon na lang gawin sa university. And if you need to adjust the requirements for number of hours, etc., i-adjust nyo na lang. Ang importante, makagraduate ang mga bata. May konti tayong problema doon sa mga ibang requirements if these are requirements that are related to the licensure test. Nag-usap na kami ng PRC. The PRC is ready to sit down with CHED to look at these requirements on how they can be adjusted. My advice to the universities is for the deans of the disciplines, for example, mga deans ng nursing, deans ng engineering, etc., please talk among yourselves. Mag-Zoom session kayo. Tingnan nyo kung anong practices na ginagawa ninyo. Continue the conversation and propose and agree among yourselves how you adjust the OJT and internship requirements so that we will now get the inputs from the deans and the faculty members and work with our technical panels to do the adjustments. And whatever they recommend to the commission will do the necessary adjustments. For example, kung 120 hours ang required sa curriculum at talagang mahirap gawin yan because of the pandemic, and you feel that you can reduce that to 80 hours without compromising the learning outcomes, then start agreeing among yourself. You work with the technical panels. And if the commission and bank sees that that is a valid reduction, we can reduce it only for the 2019-2020 batch. That is the position of the commission. Pwedeng adjust para makagraduate yung mga bata. Ngayon, when we open the school year in August, then we look at the OJT again in the context naman of flexible learning. Kasi yung una, yung 2019-2020, in the context of ECQ yan, in the context of lockdown. Yung in the context of flexible learning, what we will now look at are the requirements for OJT and internship in the context of flexible learning. What needs to be adjusted? And the commission is ready to change the policies as needed. But we want to get the experiences on the ground of faculty members and universities because you are not similarly situated across the country. And we'd like to get what your experiences are so that this can be adjusted by the commission.
Thank you, sir. Ito po ay isa sa mga naka-pipeline na gagawin mo natin sa region for particular disciplines. Next week pa kami po ay magkakaroon ng sessions with our HCIs regarding flexible learning models for particular disciplines. Next question po, sir. From Gregor, what about the enrollment and validation, sir? Is it necessary to go to the admission and registration office physically?
Bahala na ang universities dyan. Bahala ng, these are academic matters that are best left to individual universities. Kasi tinatanong ako dyan on the media, sabi ko, the big universities have already given their admission test way ahead of time. Last year pa. So wala din silang problema sa admission test. May results na. Ang problema na lang nila, paano mag-i-enroll. Some universities, their problem is they could not give admission exams because of the lockdown. So different universities are adjusting. Some are doing a combination of online test and in some SUCs in Region 6, ang ginagawa nila, sinusundo nila yung mga estudyante by batch sa iba-ibang munisipyo to help both in admission and also in enrollment. We leave that to the universities to decide. Ang request ko lang sa mga universities, please continue discussing this with your local governments. Kasi yung availability ng transportation, that is a local government concern. You may need to use your own buses, your own transportation in the university, or work with the local governments to bring the students to enroll.
Sir. Sir, alam po namin napakarami yung schedule. Last 3 questions po kung inyo pong mamarapatin. From Tinay Avila, Sir, I am from Ateneo de Davao University. What are the plans done by CHED so far in addressing the digital divide, which is apparently an issue in all HEIs in the country?
Okay, that's a very good question. The first thing that the Commission did during the lockdown was to sit down with DICT. Because when we discuss the digital divide, we must discuss it with available data on the ground. So ang ginawa ng DICT, we held a Zoom session with state universities and colleges, and they rolled out a system to compute the connectivity in all the campuses of state universities. Kasi ang situation sa madaming state universities, sasabihin mahina ang signal. Pero minsan malakas yung signal sa main campus, mahina doon sa extension, doon sa malalayong campus. Minsan may signal sa munisipyo, pero walang signal sa campus. So maybe it is not just the signal that is the problem, but the way the internet and the connectivity issue is designed in the classroom. So nag-roll out ng system of computing. I think the data is already available. Nag-submit na ba lahat sa Region 1? Lahat ng SUCs? Nung kanilang measurement?
Opo sir, pinasubmit na po natin lahat.
Okay. Once na-submit kasi lahat, tapos titignan namin yung data, we will sit down with the ICT again and craft an intervention by CHED and the ICT. For example, we can provide technical assistance to SUCs on how they will make their campuses smart campuses. Kasi minsan yung pagkaka-design lang kung saan nilagay yung mga router, saan nilagay yung pagkuha ng signal, minsan yun ang problema sa isang campus. So DICT and CHED can provide technical assistance. We can provide grants for connectivity to state universities and colleges. But we're not going to give money to SUCs if we do not know what is the actual situation in every campus. Kasi kailan mini-measure yan eh. Kung i-improve mo yung connectivity, from what to what? That should be the basis of providing government grants. The stimulus package in the House and the Senate, I put there, or I recommended, grants to higher education institutions for connectivity. But that can only happen if we have the data on our hand. Without data, sayang yung perang ibibigay. Now, we've done it with SUC. We now want the regional offices to start their consultation with private universities. Do we roll out a similar DICT assessment for private universities all over the country? Inuna namin yung SUCs kasi mas malalaki ang enrollment at saka mas malalaki ang campus ng SUKS. So the connectivity issue can be addressed easier in terms of the magnitude of enrollment and the physical facilities. But now that we have the data for SUKS, the next step is we can do a similar exercise with private universities. So I asked our regional director to do a Zoom session with private universities in Region 1, also on the issue of connectivity. And we can do the same exercise with the ICT to test the connectivity of all the campuses and provide technical assistance on how to improve connectivity. So that is the direction. I will push for grants for higher education institutions only if the grants are correctly targeted and there is a measurement on improvement of connectivity. I have always opposed any idea of giving just money to universities or give everyone 5 million and connectivity will improve. Because that has been happening all these years from tawag dito, from pork barrel of legislators, etc. If it is true that this was done correctly, connectivity would have drastically improved already. But maybe the reason why it has not improved is we're not doing it correctly. That's why we have to do it correctly. So that is the direction. First, test the connectivity, identify ways to improve it, maybe cost share or maybe give grants to improve connectivity to universities. Next. Okay. Nawala na yung audio natin. Can you still hear me? Yung training for faculty members, I think we're going to have, actually we've started the commission and bank already now of the commission. And I was told that there are funding or project proposals already for the training of faculty members that will be approved or that will be discussed in the CEB. So once those are approved, we can start that in June. Yung ibang universities talk to me, some private universities, they said they're willing to do training for faculty members and give it free of charge. Kahit na hindi na daw bayaran ng commission. But we have funds to pay for it. So what I would ask our universities, both public and private, is by this time, dapat na-assess nyo na yung training needs ng faculty ninyo as of this time. Meaning, you have classified your faculty already. Who are those that have sufficient capability already to do online? Who are those that will still need sufficient intervention? Who are those with very poor skills in using technology for learning? Dapat na-design nyo na yung inyong direction for your faculty. So when the commission issues a call for you to send your faculty members, you can send them immediately. Kung hindi nyo pa na-assess yan ngayon, may problema kayo. Because you might be sending them to the wrong training program. So I ask that universities, both public and private, you should be ready to send your faculty members to training programs. Yung iba kasi, hindi naman kailangan ng libre. Ang daming online training on the use of technology. How do you use Google Classroom, etc. Madaming libre na pwede mong gawin online eh. But there are other specialized training programs that our top universities will provide it, and the ones who will be trained are faculty members of other universities.
Thank you, sir. Sir, last question posted from our Zoom. Will there be an extension of the validity for autonomous or deregulated status? Question from Dr. Cathy Torio of Virgen Milagrosa University, sir.
Actually, honestly, hindi ko pa pinag-uusapan ito kasi hindi ko pa iniisip ito. Ang mind ko nasa lockdown pa lang eh. because the IATF meetings are every day, you know. Yesterday, our IATF meeting ended at 8 o'clock in the evening. Tomorrow, we have another one. You know, the IATF meetings have been very, what would be a good term to use? Very energy sapping exercises because you have to look into every detail. You know, the problem in the IATF is the conditions of the on the ground are so different across geographic areas in the country. And yet you are required to make policies that will cover everyone and also allow flexibility to happen on the ground. So it's so difficult. Anyway, kaya hindi ko pa iniisip. Kailan ba mag-expire yung autonomous deregulated? Next year pa naman yan eh.
Yes, sir. Next year pa po.
Huwag muna natin pag-usapan yan. Mag-flexible muna tayo tapos saka natin pag-usapan yang flexible tsaka deregulated. Ayaw ko pang magdagdag ng iisipin. Flexible lang ang nasa isip ko.
Opo, sir. Marami pong salamat, sir. Sir, marami po.
You can ask some more questions.
Sir, pwede pa po. Sige po, sir.
Yes, I asked the CEB to start the CEB and I will just jump in after our webinar. So you can continue maybe for another 15, 20 or 30 minutes.
Sige po, sir. From Judith Sakosana, we focus on the digital divide and among schools and teachers, but how about training for students? Not one organization is taking that into the scheme of things on how students have technical assistance and migrate from residential to flexible learning. Should the teachers do it for the school, sir?
Okay, my thinking on this is first, I am not so afraid about the ability of students to adapt because most of our students are digital natives. They are not digital migrants, meaning when they were born, the internet was already working. And therefore, they are more attuned to technology than us who are digital migrants. So that's the first one. I think the transition to digital learning will not be as problematic for students because they use technology all the time. Doon sa mga ka-age group natin, no? Sino ba dito mga ka-age group ko? Remember before, pag bibili tayo ng appliance o bibili tayo ng gadget sa tindahan, pag uwi natin, ang unang hinahanap natin yung manual, how to set it up, di ba? That's the training of digital migrants. The manual written in several languages was the most important document na nakalagay doon sa box na inuwi natin. Kasi without that, we will not be able to set up our television, we will not be able to set up our stereo, etc. Yun ang tinitignan natin. Do you notice that many gadgets now, when you buy them, the manual is very thin because when you set it up, everything is technology driven. Kukunin mo na lang, i-sync mo na lang. Because ang mga bata, they don't read the manual anymore. They just look online on how to set up a gadget. Doon nila dinudugtong. So I'm not so concerned. The reason why the Commission has not really looked into assistance to students is because in the order of priorities, I think the biggest challenge at this point in time are teachers. Yung teachers ang muna i-capacitate muna natin. So that is the direction, no? Once the training program of teachers have started to move, then maybe we can start discussing the students. Pero gusto ko unahin yung teachers kasi nandiyan ang challenge. I don't know the profile of your teachers, but I fear for the more senior professors who have only taught inside the classroom, who have not used technology in teaching, transitioning them from a purely face-to-face classroom type instruction into using digital resources is a major leap of faith that we have to help them achieve. I think that is the biggest challenge for everyone. I think the problem for students more than technology is connectivity. Not technology, but connectivity. But once they are connected, have you seen them how they post things online? What they produce as video materials? Oh, kasi pati ako inuupakan diyan ng mga kaliwa, no? Oh, ako daw I have blood on my hands, no? They create caricatures about me, saying that I should resign. They're very imaginative. They know how to use technology to post online. So I'm not so concerned. I'm more concerned about the faculty members. The other thing that concerns me is how fast can universities set up their learning management system? Because you must be able to set up a learning management system if you want to do flexible learning. It will be very difficult to do flexible learning if you don't have a learning management system. Because how will faculty members connect with their students? How will the administration of the university connect with their faculty and students? How do you systematize the interaction between students and faculty, getting resources, getting instructions on what to read, if you don't have a learning management system? That is the challenge that has to be done. And by the way, it's not true that learning management systems are all online. Huh? Silliman University, through a grant of CHED, has produced a learning management system that does not require internet, does not require connectivity. Pwede kahit na walang connectivity, may learning management system silang ginawa. So for the universities that want to use this learning management system, please just work with your regional office to get in touch with Silliman University. Several universities in the Visayas are now working with Silliman University so they can use the learning management system of Silliman University that does not require connectivity. They use that for their campuses where the connectivity is very weak. So yeah, and we gave a grant to Silliman several years back. They have already used it, by the way. Some of their faculty members have already used it. So it is a working learning management system that does not require connectivity.
Thank you, sir. Galing po sa ating group chat ng ating Region 1 HCI President, sir, can flexible learning simply be delivered by full homeschool program using learning modules to be sent by messenger or email, considering that internet connection in the different localities are not strong?
Well, theoretically, it can be done. Ang problema natin, ang homeschooling sa Philippines hindi naman ginagamit sa higher education. We have limited homeschooling, and the homeschooling that is being done is basically K12. So I don't know if universities can adopt this fast and do it successfully. There are several problems of homeschooling if you use the experience of other countries. Ang isang premise kasi sa homeschooling is that there will be somebody to guide the student. Yung pag-guide ng students kung full homeschooling, even in K-12 is problematic because the parents have to earn a living. They may not be available in the schools or in the residence all the time. Kasi maghahanap buhay yung magulang, lalabas. May iwan yung bata. So yung pag-adjust ng homeschooling, the homeschooling context in the United States and other developed countries is basically being used by relatively more affluent families where the parents can stay at home. Parang mahirap gawin sa Pilipinas yan kasi maghahanap buhay ang mga magulang. Ganon din sa higher ed. There must be significant interaction between the students and the faculty members. So baka ang maganda, yung flexible, meron pa rin mga periods na pupunta pa rin sila to discuss with their faculty members, either on a limited face-to-face or some technology-driven interaction. Medyo mahirap kasi yung mga text-text kasi ang hirap mag-discuss sa text eh. Maliit yung space, you cannot do significant interaction. I did that before, by the way, no? I did flexible learning in year 2000. Wala pang Zoom noon. Ang internet connection noon, dial-up pa lang. I did that in year 2000 when I was a visiting professor, a Fulbright visiting professor at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Of course, I did it in the graduate school, hindi sa undergrad, no? Kasi yung mga galit sa akin sa UP, huwag niyo na ikwento ito ha. Yung mga galit sa akin sa UP, ang ginawa, binigyan ako ng load for the second semester to force me to go home while I was doing my visiting professor stint. So I was, magsisimula yung semester ng November. So what I did was to make the syllabus flexible. Ang ginawa ko, yung materials, gumawa ako ng mga guide. May learning guide ako. For this material, this is what you read, this is what you look for, etc. And the students submit through email to the other students in the class yung kanilang summary based on the learning guide. Okay? They submit it 2-3 days before we do a session. Yung session namin was Yahoo Chat. Yahoo Chat lang ang available noon, walang video. So we log on and then we chat. And then the students compare the things that their classmates did and we do a discussion. Of course, even at that time, as a faculty member of UP, I was already using a lot of online resources. So pag tinignan niyo yung syllabus ko sa NCPAG, mga kalahati ng syllabus, mga links ang nakalagay sa syllabus. So you just click there and you view it, you view the videos on your own time. There are guide questions that I tell everyone to use when they view the video. There are questions that they answer, etc. So yung laman ng syllabus, combination of online and combination of printed. Yung printed, meron din guide questions. And then every week, we will do a Yahoo Chat at a designated time. Naalala ko noon, pumapasok ako sa office very early in the morning. I think 7 o'clock in the morning sa Baltimore para 7 o'clock in the evening yung mga estudyante ko sa Manila. And we all log on using Yahoo and then we discuss. And then we summarize at the end. It was very difficult in year 2000 kasi ang bagal ng internet, nagda-dial up ka pa. At saka minsan, yung mababagal ng internet, tapos na yung usapan nyo, saka lang sila makaka-post. So pabalik-balik kayo. But we were able to do it. I went back to the Philippines 1 month before the ending of classes and I did a 1-month residential class and finished the semester. So nag-flexible learning na ako ng year 2000 pa by force of circumstance. Pero medyo mahirap yung text lang kasi limited yung space for interaction. My advice to those who are redesigning their syllabus is you must make good learning guides. So for every topic na ganyan, every part of the syllabus, naka-identify mo, nakalagay mo na doon at the end of this portion of the syllabus, these are the learning outcomes, these are the things that students would have learned, etc. They would have been able to differentiate, they would be able to understand. Dapat malinaw sa lahat yan for every part. And then the way to achieve that learning outcomes, yun ang paiba-iba. And then you give them learning guides ahead of time and you let them submit their answers to the learning guides ahead of time to their classmates also. Kaya kailangan ng learning management system kasi yung mga ginagawa ng mga estudyante outside the classroom, Doon nila ilalagay yan sa learning management system para makita ng mga kaklase nila eh. Otherwise, you'll have to do it via email or you will do it by text. Eh medyo madugo yan kung marami-rami yung estudyante niyo.
Sir, galing po sa ating isang medical school, Pangasinan. Chairman, what is the position of CHED regarding clinical research in fourth-year medicine?
Ano ba ang what is the problem? What do you mean, what is the position? What is the problem that needs to be addressed?
Hindi pa po sila maka-duty, sir, sa kanilang mga base hospitals.
Ang nagmi-meet ba yung mga deans ng mga medical schools nyo dyan? How are the universities adjusting to it? Yun muna ang gusto kong malaman. Before you ask CHED what CHED will do, I ask first, how are you adjusting to it? How are the medical schools adjusting to it?
Meantime, sir, nag-stop po sila with their duty sa kanilang mga base hospitals.
So ano ang option? What is their proposal?
Their option, sir, is to proceed after the lockdown, sir, with the duty ng ating mga estudyante sa base hospital.
Yes. After the lockdown, i-continue nila yung clinical tawag dito, internship nila.
Yes, sir.
Para matapos yung program. Yes. Ang
Yes,
pwede niyong gawin yan, kasi sa medicine, kailangan lahat ng specialization sa hospital mag-rotation yung estudyante. Eh. You can simplify it by limiting what specializations they will go to. Pwedeng hindi lahat. Pwedeng hindi lahat kung kulang sa panahon at saka kulang sa facilities. So instead of rotating them to all the specializations, pick the ones that are most critical, doon yun na lang sila muna i-rotate. That is a way of simplifying it. Kasi baka nga yung ibang specialization hindi sila makapunta. Pero wag niyong itigil na wala nang rotation. Don't do that because baka kawawa ang bata pagka magkwakwan siya, pag magla-licensure siya. Baka maapektuhan yung kanyang preparation for the licensure. Siguro for a regional director, ang hinihingi ko sa mga universities, keep the conversation going, keep on meeting, keep on sharing experiences. And if there are changes that you want to do, adjustments that you want to do, work with our regional office. All of this can be discussed by the commission and bank and adjusted accordingly. Please do not wait for the commission to issue very detailed guidelines. Because one of the policy shifts that I have initiated in the commission is to listen more to what is happening on the ground. Because this pandemic has no precedence in our history. That's what I always say. It has no precedence. So there is no expert who can predict everything that will happen on the ground. So the approach that we are doing is, we get what's happening on the ground, try to find consensus, and see whether adjustments can be done in the policy. That is how all the departments of government are doing now. Mahirap yung lahat ipiprescribe mo kasi iba yung situation on the ground. For example, I'll give you an example. Ito na-experience ko na because I regularly bike. I bike. Eh nakalagay sa IATF requirements, pwede na magbisikleta. O so nagbisikleta ako, madami kami nagbike. Eh paglabas namin, nung magko-cross kami ng political boundary, bigla kami hinarang sa checkpoint. Kasi sabi, hindi ka pwedeng pumasok dito, hindi ka taga rito. Oh, sabi ko, pero sabi ng IATF, pwedeng magbisikleta as a form of exercise. And yet on the ground, the policemen have strict instructions that you cannot enter the localities unless you are a resident or unless you have business there. So you see, it's very easy at the national level to say, yes, exercises will be allowed. But if you don't know what's happening on the ground things will be different. Kasi sabi ko, Paano pinayagan na pwede na ang golf? Paano ka mag-golf? Wala namang golf doon sa munisipyo mo. Para mag-golf ka, lilipat ka ng ibang locality. Which means you allowed golf to happen, but in reality, it will not happen because you have to look for a golf course. Sabi ko, ang requirement pa, pag magbibisikleta ako, paikot-ikot lang ako sa neighborhood. But I don't do that. I ride for 40, 50, 60 kilometers going back. So that is what I am saying. No? Keep the conversation going. Talk among yourselves. The deans, for example, of the medical schools, the deans of the dentistry, physical therapy, exchange with each other what you are doing. And then if there is a consensus, bring it to the attention of the commission. And we will consider it seriously. That is the approach that is better during this pandemic.
Thank you, sir. Sir, mula po sa ating group chat ng ating mga presidents, may we know your thoughts on how to handle laboratory requirements or hands-on of hospitality management, pharmacy, engineering, and other courses? May we know your... Yes, sir.
Well, I had a Zoom session last week with some of the members of the technical panels. Yung technical panel of engineering, they were very confident that if you go flexible, there are enough online resources that can be used, even for portions that will require hands-on. That's what they told me. So, under the leadership of Director Cherry Diego, the technical panels are meeting regularly to find out adjustments in the curriculum that they will propose to the commission to address these concerns. When you shift to flexible learning, how do you do some of the things that you used to do purely in a physical setting? What would be the alternatives? At this point, I wouldn't be able to answer the question because I'm not an expert on HRM. I do not pretend to be an expert on engineering. Kaya nga ang advice ko, keep the conversation going. Kung meron kayong nakitang mga pwede ng alternative, discuss that among yourselves, see if they are viable, and then we will connect your experiences on the ground with the assessment of the technical panel and consider this in the discussion of the commission. The commission is ready to adjust the curriculum as needed under the new normal. But we will need inputs from you. We will need inputs from the technical experts because the commissioners are not experts on a lot of these fields. Kung yung mga field na yan na field ko, pwede ko sabihin kung ano alternative. Kasi may experience na ako dyan. Pero hindi ko field yung HRM, yung engineering, etc. But for example, in the management sciences, which is my field, public administration, if you look at my syllabus in NCPAG, I have been experimenting with alternative sources of learning materials maybe 15, 20 years ago. So alam ko na kung saan kukunin, ano yung pwede, etc. No? Pero doon sa ibang field, I am not the expert. You probably know more than me, so I am willing to listen to you and see if these are really viable.
Yes, sir. Sir, last question po from Judith Secosana. It's not student or parents themselves who are insisting to migrate to flexible learning. How can they be helped and convince them to enroll this coming school year?
Well, I think the only recourse that we could do is keep on convincing them that the universities are safe to send their children back to school. I think that's the only thing we can do. And that is why the health protocols that we are crafting have to be health protocols that are really practical, useful, available, etc. When we are able to institute the health protocols, then their level of confidence on the safety of their children will go up. And that is the best way to convince them that it is safe to send their children to school. Until they are assured of the safety, We really cannot do anything if the parents don't want to send their children to school. That is the reality. Not just here, but all over the world. That is the reality. Especially in other countries, when they sent their students back to school, there was reinfection. So the fear of the parents is not just fear itself. There is some basis to fear because of what happened in Korea when they opened classes. Of course, ito K12 ito. When they opened classes, 1 week after they closed again kasi may reinfection. So the only thing we can do is observe very strict health protocols, establish them in our universities so that the parents will be convinced it is safe for them to go back. Yun lang, yun ang non-negotiable. Kung ayaw nila, ang dapat natin gawin is we should respect their decision and adjust our policies. Yung maximum residence rule, for example, i-adjust natin. Yung requirements ng mga grade point average to graduate with honors, pwede nating i-adjust yan because of the pandemic. Yung mga maximum number of units per year, yung mga ganyan, pwede nating i-adjust yan eh. So that a student can decide not to go to school for 1 semester and go back the next semester. Maybe we can do these adjustments. Hindi yung 1 taon yung hihintayin. Kasi baka by next year, baka mas na tayo sa health protocols, mababa na ang transmission rate, we have controlled the spread, and therefore parents will feel more comfortable. The thing that we should not do, and I repeat this to everyone, the thing we should not do is to give up and say, we should stop learning. Because universities are supposed to be the bastions of innovation, bastions of knowledge. The things that change societies are supposed to come from universities. If we in the university ourselves surrender and say, wag na magklase, my God, no? Imagine the impact of that on the rest of the country. Learning must continue. We have to adjust. We cannot surrender and say, next year na tayo magsimula. That is a perspective that should not happen for professors and for universities.
Salamat. Muli kami po ay mula sa Region 1 at sa ating mga HEIs presidents na nasa Zoom ngayon po ay nagpapasalamat po kami sa pagpapaunlak ninyo, sir, sa araw na ito sa amin. Sir,
ang request ko, keep the discussions because ang susunod na challenge sa commission. So I want the universities to start thinking about this. Is yung protocols when we open the semester in August. This is the next biggest challenge. Kasi sa IATF, nahirapan kami mag-craft ng protocols. For example, for business establishments. Kasi iba-iba yung peculiarities ng business establishments eh. Halimbawa, sinabi mo, bubuksan ng mga barber shop, pero 30% capacity lang. I mean, on a national perspective, madaling isipin yan, o 30% capacity. Pero kung maliit na barbershop sa probinsya yan, na 4 lang yung barber's chairs, 30% means that is only 1 customer that can get inside the barbershop. Malulugi ang business kung isang barbero lang every hour, isang nagpapagupit lang every hour. Kasi when we look at barbershops, iba-iba yung size. May malalaking barbershop, may maliliit na barbershop. So when we say 30%, 50%, from a policy perspective at the national, it looks doable. But at the local, when you implement it, it is not feasible. That's why I need the help of the universities. When we say, pwede ba yung ating classroom kung magkakaroon ng face-to-face, 50% capacity lang ang estudyante? Is that a policy that we can immediately implement? 50%. But what is the size of the classroom? What is the number of students? Baka naman ang student ratio nyo is maliit na classroom, pinagkakasya ang 40. So pag sinabing 50% capacity ang face-to-face, baka yung 20, pag physically nilayout mo, baka magkakadikit pa rin. So can our universities keep discussing this, sit down with our regional office, and visualize how should the classroom look like for social distancing? If you impose a 1 meter distance between students, ilan ba talaga ang kakasya sa isang classroom? Is it 50% of the students? Is it 30%, for example? Cafeteria. How do we redesign the cafeteria to comply with social distancing? Can we move some of our classes to the gym para pwedeng mag-lecture yung faculty, mas maraming kasya ng mga estudyante, kasi kung gym mo gagawin, yung 1 meter between chairs, kayang-kaya mo yan, baka hindi 50% ang reduction, baka some of our general education courses na malalaking estudyante, ilipat natin sa gym. What other spaces in the university can we use for educational purposes? Please start visualizing this. Please prepare for this. And please tell me what is the best way to do it. So when I propose to the IATF, I am assured that whatever the IATF decides, it can be implemented at the ground level. That is what I ask our public and private universities to start conceptualizing now, to start discussing among yourselves, to work with our regional office para ma-summarize itong mga gusto nyong gawin. So it can be brought to my attention. We can even do a Zoom session to discuss this, yung physical spacing. Anong protocol ba ang dapat para kung biglang merong bata magkasakit pag nagbukas ulit? What is the most efficient way to bring them to a hospital? Kung wala kayong infirmary, wala kayong nurse, what is the best way to bring them to a quarantine center or to a hospital? I need your inputs on this because I don't want to be proposing policy to the IATF that I am not convinced will work well at the local level. Kasi ang mangyayari, magre-revise ng details ng policy as the problems come out. But if you help me craft this, then pagdating sa IATF, pag in-approve, mas madaling i-implement. What are the protocols that you need to develop with local government units para mabilis ang response? Ano ang protocols para sa transportation ng mga bata pag nagbukas yung classroom? Because you are all differently situated. Iba-ibang situation ng universities. Please, start discussing this because I need to get IATF approval for protocols on the opening of classes within the month of June. So that is our timeline. I ask all our universities to share your thoughts about this. Pwede ba yan? I am sure meron na kayong ideas ngayon, pero mag-usap-usap kayo niyan, tapos sabihin nyo sa akin kung ano yung pwedeng gawin.
Yes, sir. I-roll out po namin ito next week, sir. Sir, marami pong salamat. On a lighter note, kami po ay bumabati sa inyo ng belated happy birthday. Sir, pagpasensyahan nyo na po itong naihanda naming video. Alam kong nakita nyo na po ito, pero gusto nyo maipakita pa rin ho na ito sa inyo.
Chair Popoy, we can never thank you enough for all the things that you do for the Commission and the Filipino youth. But thank you still. These words may be simple and plain, yet this ordinary word express our extraordinary gratitude and deep admiration for your service, examples, and great leadership. No pandemic can ever stop us at Shed Region 1 in letting you know.
Sir, muli marami pong salamat sa pagpapaunlak niyo po sa amin dito sa Region 1, sir.
Meron pa two other things that I'd like the people in the region to start doing. CHED is establishing its online resource center where we will put all available materials that the students and faculty can use for flexible learning. We're targeting to have that up by July. So when you redesign your syllabus, we're trying our best to make available online a lot of the resources, both domestic and foreign, that you can use in your classrooms. So we will help the universities with that. The other one that I ask our universities to discuss among themselves and our regional office is the issue of connectivity. So that I can continue discussing with the ICT. We are realigning some funds for this, but we need a better understanding of the connectivity challenges. My assumption is malakas ang connectivity sa Region 1, but I am not sure. Ang tinututukan kasi ng commission yung mga regions na talagang there are wide pockets of connectivity concerns. Region 8, for example, wide variances in connectivity. Portions of Mindanao, portions of Luzon on the eastern seaboard, mahina ang connectivity. My assumption is Region 1 probably has a strong connectivity, but I don't know. No? So please talk about these connectivity concerns fast. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, sa OERs nakapag-identify na po tayo sa region ng mga lead schools natin para sa possible consortium na gagawin po natin.
Yeah, ang isa pa. Alam nyo, itong flexible learning is opening up a lot of opportunities for us to drastically change higher education in areas that we never imagined it would change. I think all universities should seize this opportunity to do things that we did not imagine we can do or were doing before. For example, this is the time for universities to work together to develop joint programs and sharing of resources. I have always championed this even before, pero very few ang takers. Is it possible for SUCs or public and private universities to work together so that students can pursue degree programs and get credits from different universities? So that universities that have very strong online capability, some of the students can take their online subjects in one university and credit it in their own university. Or even universities that will have joint degree programs to maximize the use of technology. This is something that I have been talking about for some time now, but there seems to be very few takers. The Commission is ready to fund initiatives of universities that will develop joint programs, sharing of resources, etc., during these flexible times. And this is an initiative of the Commission that will continue until next year. So that's a food for thought for the universities to work together. This is also the call of several legislators. When I talked before the Senate, this is one of the things that they also ask. Para yung physical limitations of students can be addressed. Pwede bang yung ibang subject kunin mo online in another school kung hindi kayang i-deliver ng school mo and get credits for it to be transferred to your degree program? Some schools are already doing that on their own. what we're looking for is schools to work together to share these resources with each other. So I hope this can be discussed in the region as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Maraming salamat po. So, Leagues in Higher Education, there you have it. Our Chairman, Dr. J. Prosepero E. de Vera III. Maraming salamat again, sir, for giving us time today.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity already, and I hope I can meet with you again soon. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Maraming salamat again, sir. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our Chairman, Dr. J. Prosepero E. de Vera III. So thank you very much to all our viewers from all over the Philippines. We have viewers from as far as Cagayan, Zamboanga City. We also have viewers from Batanes and even abroad listening to intently to our Chair, Dr. J. Prosepero de Vera III. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will also be deploying our new project. This is the Edu Digital Transformation Project. I hope all of you have already signed in your intention to the Digital Edu Transformation Project of the CHED Regional Office 1. However, this will be exclusive for our higher education institutions in Region 1. We are also deploying later on our project on flexible learning models. We hope to be able to invite our OPSD Director, Dr. Cherry Melanie Ancheta Diego, and our technical panels to discuss with us on how to go about crafting our flexible learning models. So with that, marami pong salamat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have not been spared of COVID-19 pandemic, and we continue to fight this invisible enemy. So we in higher education, emboldened by our mission to serve our country by investing in the Filipino people, we will have to continue to rethink of the most appropriate systems that should be in place upon the opening of academic year 2020-2021. Indeed, there will be big adjustments, ladies and gentlemen, as we leap into transition, but helping each other, katulad po ng sabi ng ating CHED Chair, will help reduce the burden. So leveraging on each other's strength will keep us ablaze in embracing flexible learning in higher education. Again, marami pong salamat sa pagtutok sa ating webinar series, Transitioning the Education Ecosystem to the New Normal, mula pa ho nung umpisa hanggang sa ating culminating webinar activity this morning. Marami pong salamat and happy 26th anniversary, Commission on Higher Education.